what are your views about making tax simple? And I know that that journey, GIFT has already traveled quite a lot of the journey, and IFSC has traveled a lot of the journey. So would love your reflections on that.
So one very important thing about the GIFT is the fact that you have a 10-year tax holiday, right? Which so out of 10 out of 15 years, there is no tax. So that is something which a lot of people know about by now. And we are also trying to create tax parity.
Right now, obviously, banks have a role to play, right? Both the international banks and the local private sector banks both have a role to play. So how do you, from your vantage point, right? The banks will do what they have to do, right? But from your vantage point, what do you see their role in deepening both private banking, wealth management activity within GIFT City?
See, of course, I don't handle the banking vertical, but I'll probably try to give a perspective from the point of view of the verticals which I handle.
Sure.
Now, for example, you take the bullion ecosystem, right? That is something which readily comes to my mind. So banks have always been traditionally participating in gold. They are the largest players in gold world over, right? In the bullion ecosystem, it is something which they can actually do. Recently, we had a meeting where the finance minister took stock, and there was one thing which she also had insisted was that the bank should participate. Right. So I believe the banks can actually make a complete difference to the bullion ecosystem if they participate. That is one thing which they can do. Secondly, a lot of innovation. One is sustainable finance. When it comes to lending in sustainable finance, 5% mandatory lending is something which is very interesting. We have also brought in the concept of short-term borrowing here very recently for CP and CDs, which can be done. So banks could actually leverage the capital market ecosystem for actually doing that. Now, otherwise, apart from that, not only banks, now we have the concept of finance companies and payment services providers.
Sure.
So we found that there are certain areas banks cannot venture because of the fact that many of them are also bound or tethered to their central banks, right? There are certain rules and regulations which tell them they can do this, they cannot do this, they cannot do that. Right. So whereas a PSP or a finance company can actually probably not be tethered by that. So we have brought in an ecosystem of finance companies and PSPs who can also play a role when it comes to sending money and also receiving money through the IFSC.
Sure. I think you spoke about global access, but also exchanges of exchanges, right? Buying stocks using GIFT City around the world, both Indian and for international clients. How do you see that growing and developing?
So just allow me to probably dwell on the capital market ecosystem for a minute or so, then probably I will try to answer that question. See, when you look at the stock exchange ecosystem, we have two separate stock exchanges in the IFSC.
Yes.
You have the India INX and the NSE IX. You have two separate clearing corporations. The India INX one clearing corporation and NSE IX also has a clearing corporation. And we have a separate bullion exchange, which also has its own clearing corporation. So we are completely, it's completely ring fenced from what happens in the domestic jurisdiction. Everything is subject to the rules and regulations. We have a MII regulations. So the boost for the stock exchanges came from the Singapore Connect, the GIFT Connect, which was there. So the futures, Nifty futures started getting traded through the National Stock Exchange, IX, International Exchange. Now, this has also opened the window for the international investors to invest. Now, the stock exchange can also bring in certain investors, and that so the percentage of trading is almost 21, 22 to probably 70, 78. We expect this also to get balanced as we go ahead. Now, apart from that, the stock exchange also has the concept of single stock futures, right? It also has the concept of UDRs. These UDRs are on international stocks, which allow Indians to probably, buy a tokenized or a fractionalized possibility of an instrument. Maybe I can't buy an Nvidia or Nvidia or an Amazon, but I can probably buy a fractionalized instrument of that. So that is something which there are 50 stocks are available today, and we have had many people taking advantage of it. Now, I am very happy to also, and of course, bond system, which I told you, the bonds are also listed. Almost 150 issuers are listed bonds. I'm quite excited to tell you that we are going to we have already opened up the markets for equity listing in the stock exchanges in the IFSC. Now, when it comes to equity listing, Indian unlisted companies can list as of now. Indian listed companies, SEBI is working on certain rules and regulations for the secondary listing, and foreign companies can list. I'm very happy to tell you that we should be seeing the first listing very shortly.
Nice.
And that should actually open up the market for others. So that will ensure more people also playing in the equity segment. And this actually becomes self-sufficient because see, today if you look at it, the Nifty futures and there is also Sensex futures, the underlying stock ultimately is in India. So that is on which it's actually a derivative. So it is not an indigenous product by itself other than the bond ecosystem. So it's imperative that you have an equity ecosystem which is there in the gift IFSC. So that is something which we are happy about. It should take off very shortly. Coming to global access. Now, what exactly is global access? So, Indians want to invest abroad. Indians want to look at various places to invest within the LRS limits which have been specified by the RBI. Now, it's important for them to act through someone who is regulated, right? Because I know that this person comes under a regulator. There are certain rules, regulations they have to comply with, certain returns they have to file. They need to have a compliance officer or a principal officer, and they know that they are complying with certain rules and regulations. But instead of investing to this person, I should not be investing through some third party, right? And recently we also found that one large brokerage house in Dubai actually went bust and a lot of Indians lost money. So we have tried to create an ecosystem where people will get registered, intermediaries will get registered with us as brokers and either operate through a foreign broker or operate through the subsidiaries of stock exchanges, both the stock exchanges there, which will get a truck with a foreign broker and they can actually invest abroad. And these markets are not just limited to just the United States. Any FATF white jurisdiction, if you want to invest, you can actually invest. If you want to invest in Brazil, you can do that. You can invest in Singapore, you can do that. So which means that imagine the plethora of possibilities that actually await. So this framework was released yesterday, and we already have a lot of people queuing up for licenses. So I really hope that that is going to be a game changer as far as the IFSC ecosystem is concerned.
It's amazing to see how the capital market, and global access. And as a former NRI, right, I keep my eye around the world. But I remember, 1990 when I bought my first stock. You had to physically apply, and then a paper form would come in, and if you got a large envelope, that means the stock had been issued, and if you got a small one, it was a refund, and you normally wanted the issuance. But the world has moved so much that rather than waiting for one stock by one stock by one stock, soon
Yes.
that GIFT will be able to buy access exchanges from around the world, and there are opportunities around the world, and HSBC sometimes is able to connect and bring research and bring access to what are the best ideas from around the world. Now, see, when people are investing overseas or in multi-currency, sometimes they're a little bit worried about tax, right? And I know this is a complex topic, and we have to have tax consultants often in the room when when we're talking about tax. But what are your views about making tax simple? And I know that journey, GIFT has already traveled quite a lot of the journey, and IFSC has traveled a lot of the journey. So would love your reflections on that.
So whenever we have visitors to GIFT, one standard question is always on tax. What can you do for us? And we have actually, like you very rightly said, we have moved quite far on that aspect. We have been able to sort of clear a lot of things, and the income tax department has been quite helpful. The government has been helpful, the ministry sitting with us and trying to understand as to what are probably the carve-outs which we have to sort of create for this jurisdiction, right? So that is something that's quite important for this jurisdiction to probably. So one very important thing about the GIFT is the fact that you have a 10-year tax holiday, right? Which so out of 10 out of 15 years, there is no tax. So that is something which a lot of people know about by now. And we are also trying to create tax parity. For example, if you invest in Mauritius, or probably if you're investing in some other jurisdiction. So if you're doing it through the GIFT, or if you're doing it directly, right? So then there needs to be tax parity and also reverse. So we are trying to do that. So every year we try to go to the taxman with almost 30 or 40 proposals.
Yes.
So when they look at us, they know that, okay, you have 30, 40, please tell me what are the most important ones. Let us look at that first. So that is how it has happened. So now the recently, if you see, the finance minister has announced that the new income tax bill will be has been passed yesterday. That has been introduced and passed. So we expect a separate chapter for IFSCA, which was has been told. So hopefully something on that also has to come, which will sort of streamline and what exactly is there. But to be very fair, the government has been creating and carving out some thing or the other every time as far as tax is concerned, because it also has to look at 2 or 3 things. One main thing is the loss to the exchequer. So even if there is loss to the exchequer, if suppose it's going to add value to the business ecosystem, that also is something which they are sort of looking at. But we have traveled very far. Like you very rightly said, there have been a lot of carve-outs, there have been many exemptions, and it continues, and it will continue to probably enrich this ecosystem.
I fully agree with you, and which is why what we've done is for our premier and for our private banking clients, we have made tax advisory with specialists a part of the proposition, so they can navigate with confidence, right? And obviously, thanks to you to continue to make this journey forward, right? And you spoke about onboarding and you spoke about KYC a little bit and how you're making KYC simpler. We've been opening individual accounts, and pleased to say that within one day we are typically able to open a GIFT City account. But from your standpoint, sir, what are you doing to simplify kind of both onboarding and the KYC experience for clients?
So that's it's a very important question, because ultimately the people who enrich the ecosystem are the investors, and we have to make their lives easy. So one thing is, in India, the KRA system, the KYC registration agency system, has been quite successful, which SEBI has brought. So we have tried to bring that model into the IFSC. So we are expecting to have the first KRA very shortly. The application will be filed very soon. So that will take care of the Indian ecosystem. There will be more people also who can take registration with us as KRAs. So this completely obviates the need for an investor to do and redo the KYC every time they invest in the GIFT IFSC ecosystem. Now, as far as the foreigners is concerned, which is where probably the issue arises. So one thing which has been a constant request has been a video KYC. Why should I come all the way here? So that is something which has been, particularly for persons of Indian origin or others. So on that, we have just recently released a paper. So we should be able to sort of come to an agreement with the FIU and on the AML CFT norms, because we have been quite high on the FATF ranking. They have actually ranked us to be one of the best ecosystems as far as FATF compliance is concerned, and we want to continue and maintain that, because when you take any international jurisdiction when it comes to tax or I mean not when it comes to color of money, right? That is a question which is constantly asked. So that is why you go to tax haven and all that. So we don't want to be that. We are not a tax haven. We are not a place which is going to be light as far as the AML safety norms are concerned. But keeping that in mind, what we can do to onboard investors easily is something which we are working on. So the video KYC thing should actually be a game changer as far as the international investors are concerned.
I fully agree. And having worked on video KYC extensively for our resident clients, I think it's the right thing to do. And the technology on video KYC has improved so much with IP and fraud controls that I think it might be fit for purpose already. What trends would have changed? What would have grown? Let's love to hear your views on what. How do you see it 5-10 years later?
Some time ago, there was a doubt on whether we will succeed. Now that doubts have actually gone. So now people are asking, where will you go?